Anxiety is a completely normal thing. It's a normal response.
Yes, the very positive thing becomes a very, very negative thing, because then I process whatever I'm anxious about to the nth degree, and then my whole world just kind of explodes.
And my brain sees it as one big thing rather than lots of individual things, and therefore it's a big thing, I can't do it, therefore I may as well not try, and I shut down and I don't do anything at all.
And I think that's really important for people to realise that it doesn't make you weak, it doesn't make you strange, you're not the only one experiencing it.
What happens is I become really narrow focused, and I'll literally cancel the rest of my day to go home and solve that one problem.
It's not to make the anxiety part of my identity.
Definitely.
Not knowing that I experience it from time to time, but it's not me.
Yeah. Okay, I'm under threat. Which you know, your brain is under threat if it doesn't get a break. So that is then sort of what starts this off.
So this is the Kilted Coaches on the couch with Dr. Kirsty.
Hi.
We had some ideas for this video. It was all going to be about anxiety. We had our ideas, and Kirsty told us to go fridge ourselves.
She's like, yeah, I'm the expert, you'll do as you're told, boys.
Which is the story of my life, really.
Just telling people.
Exactly. Especially boys. So, yeah, I thought we would redo it a little bit.
So Kirsty had her own ideas, and so she's hijacked the channel and decided that we have got to be psychoanalysed on the couch.
On the couch, yep. And I think you're going first, buddy.
Are you feeling up to this? Are you feeling brave?
To be honest, I've been so blasé about this whole process until I've actually started thinking about, actually, I'm about to be psychoanalysed. I'm about to be put on the couch.
Someone's getting anxious.
But we don't want to put people off this. We want to...
Of course.
So you need to tell everybody this is to your audience.
To the audience.
Exactly.
To open myself up.
Yeah, this is a positive experience.
It is.
Yeah.
It's always a positive experience with two guys and one girl on the couch.
Especially when the girl's in the middle.
You guys are terrible. I would never say anything like that.
But psychologists are allowed to say things like that. Okay. We can say what we want, and then erase it from people's memories.
And I'm immature, so I can say what I want as well, right?
Well, technically, we're wearing kilts, so you can always say what you want. Wear a kilt, right?
I should have got one too.
You should have got a kilt. In fact, maybe I've got one. Maybe we should get you in a kilt.
Yeah. Next time I do a takeover.
Get you out of those clothes and into a kilt.
Which one though, Bo?
Just one.
But seriously, this will not be painful. Hopefully this will be a positive experience for all concerned.
Right.
So you feeling brave?
I'm feeling brave. I guess I'll muscle up, Buttercup, eh?
Let's get stuck in.
I feel so lucky right now. But hi, I'm Dr. Kirsty, and today
I'm patient Stephen.
I have a Kilted Coach on the couch, which we've been practicing saying because it's really hard. So I guess to tell you a little bit about why I'm here, apart from getting Stephen lying on a couch, is you did a video a few weeks back now?
Yes, a couple of months ago now, I think.
And I remember it was a really nice wintry walk that you went on, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So Stephen did a video which was very brave, talking about some of your experiences with anxiety.
Yep.
Right? And I saw the video. Stephen and I have known each other for a while, but I saw the video and I got in touch with him after that, and we spoke about it a wee bit, and it turned out we thought it might be quite a useful thing to talk to all you guys about as well.
Yeah.
So
we got quite a good response from some of those videos. Now, I did that on a personal page, then afterwards then introduced it to the Kilted Coaches with an amazing response. I think a lot of people experience anxiety and are keen to talk about it.
Yeah, so I think that was one of the reasons we thought this would be a really good idea, was because anxiety is such a common thing. It's something that we all experience, but still people can be quite cautious, I think, about talking about their feelings, especially guys, I think, can still feel a little bit worried about expressing themselves. So first of all, I think it's amazing what Stephen did. I think it was very brave.
Thanks.
to come out and do that, because you did it, didn't you? Somebody had challenged you to do something that was out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And that's how that came about, wasn't it?
Yeah. We're challenged to tell my audience on Facebook, my personal audience, so it's like family, friends, something they didn't know about me. So I decided, is either going to be the sweet tooth, because some people don't know that, and I was kind of like, that's a bit of a cop out, that's an easy one, or the anxiety. So we did that, and got a great response, and I think people appreciated understanding that because of what I do for a living. They were like, oh, okay, it's normal to get anxiety now and again. Okay, that's great. And then it allowed other people to express themselves.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing, is that once someone starts talking about it, it's a lot easier for other people to start talking. And especially someone like Stephen, you know, if you look at Stephen, looking like he does and doing what he does, you don't necessarily associate him with being someone who might feel anxious, you know, oozing confidence as he does.
Oozing something.
Panic, probably, at the minute. Fear. So yeah, I think that was why we thought this would be a good idea.
Yeah.
It was partly as well to say that anxiety is a completely normal thing. It's a normal response. You know, if you're feeling under stress, if you're feeling that there's a lot going on in your life, then starting to feel a bit anxious is a normal response to that. And I think that's really important for people to realise that it doesn't make you weak, it doesn't make you strange, you're not the only one experiencing it. Everybody goes through periods of stress and periods of pressure in your lives, and to feel like it's difficult to cope is a normal way to respond to that. And I think that's what you said, wasn't it? That you just sometimes felt that things could get on top of you a bit if you had a lot going on, or...
I think the way I see it is... If I've got something like huge going on, and you get a bit of anxiety, you can handle the anxiety because you know that it's normal. You can see it as normal.
Exactly.
But it's when you get anxious, and it doesn't make any sense. Like I've got too many text messages to respond to, and I'm feeling anxious about it, and you end up not responding to a text message. And it's like, it's such a small thing, and why am I feeling incapacitated to respond to some messages or an email or a comment on Facebook or whatever?
Yeah.
And I think that's when I think, well, this can't be normal. You know, there's a normal response, and then there's a response that doesn't quite make any sense to me.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important thing, especially if we look at our lives now, look at modern life. One of the main problems, and one of the many potentially reasons that people are so anxious now, is because we very rarely get to switch off. You know, so like you were saying, I think especially with what you do, a lot of your stress is probably caused by having to constantly be available to people. You know, you have a lot of viewers in the States, so they're in a different time zone from us, so it's not even like it comes to night time in the UK and then you can switch off. And I think the online nature of our lives definitely contributes a lot to this sort of feeling like we don't even have ourselves to ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like everybody wants a piece, and you can't ever sort of get a minute to yourself. But then I think that's when it's really important, if you are feeling like that, to force yourself to take time. And you said, like, you take time out to meditate, don't you? You find that works for you.
Yeah, sometimes even just 2 minutes. You know, set a wee countdown timer for 2 minutes, and I'll just sit and meditate, and actually really does help. Just to settle my brain and get me focused again.
Do you find that makes it easier then to sort of go back and answer that text, or like how do you respond? Like, you know, apart from just wanting to switch down, like how do you sort of get things going again?
For me, often when I'm feeling anxiety, it's kind of like being thirsty. When you're thirsty, it's a bit too late. Like you should have been on top of your water intake from the get-go. Yeah. So for me, if I set my morning up in the right way, and I do a little bit of meditation before any anxiety kicks in, then I don't suffer for the whole day. Yeah. It's when I've had like a rushed morning and I feel like I'm chasing my tail from the minute I wake up. Yeah. That's when I know that I'm going to get anxious later on. Okay. So the meditation for me is almost like a prevention rather than a cure. Yeah.
And it's also that forward planning as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That knowing, okay, so I'm going to have a busy day tomorrow, so I need to make sure that I maybe get up a few minutes earlier so I can do my meditating first. Yeah. So I think sort of planning that extra time, even if it is just a few minutes, is really important, so you don't feel then like you're spending the day chasing your tail. But I think the meditation thing is really good as well, because I know that works for so many people. And like, what do you do? Do you think about something specific, or do you sort of try and clear your mind, or what do you...
I've got a phrase that I say a phrase, it's 2 words. I've got 2 words that I say over and over and over again. That just keeps me right.
Would you like to share? You don't have to.
I am is my 2 words. I am.
And why did you choose that?
Because often what I've done in the past is believed that my life should be in a certain way, or my life is predetermined and things are happening for a reason, and I've never been one of those people to say, well, everything happens for a reason. I don't believe that, and I know that I don't believe that, but when I'm feeling anxious, I think it's because this is the way somebody's making it happen to me. Mm-hmm. So by me saying I am, it's like, no, that I am and the world is. There are no preconceived ideas, or there is no fate. I don't know about quote my favourite film there. There is no fate but what we make. And for me saying I am, I just know like I am, and I'm in control of what I do on a day-to-day basis. So it kind of keeps me centred. I
think that's really important as well, is the idea of control, because I think that is a really key thing with anxiety and panic as well, especially sort of panic attacks, but definitely with anxiety is just feeling like you're not in control of your own life, that things are happening to you. And I think that's when it is really important to take that time and maybe try and schedule your day and take those few minutes to yourself, because then that is a way of sort of like reclaiming control of your life, rather than just being like running from one thing to another and feeling like you don't even own what is happening to you. Yeah. So I think that's a really key thing to do. And another thing that I found really helpful was, and it's something that clinical psychologists use a lot, is there's a saying that, you can't control what happens to you, but you can control how you feel about it. And I found that really useful, because again, it's something that I've experienced as well in the past, is just, I could get panicky in situations where I basically didn't have control over it. There were lots of other people there, and I know that quite a few of you as well spoke about social anxiety, or feeling a bit sort of overwhelmed if there's lots of people there. And I sometimes felt like that as well. And I think that saying really helped me, because I thought, well, if I'm in a place that's really busy or really crazy, and ironically enough, I used to feel like that on airplanes. I don't know if anybody else has had that, but I used to feel quite panicky on airplanes, not so much because of the fear of flying, but actually because of
too many people.
Like the sort of being trapped in this metal tube. And then someone told me that, and it actually really helped me, because I thought, well, if people are being idiots or if whatever's happening, I can't control that, but I can control how I feel about it. So it is something that I found really useful in my life, and it does take practice, but if something's happening even on a small level and sort of stressing you out, it's kind of trying to think, okay, is there another way I can think about this? This is really annoying me, but at the end of the day, the annoyance is damaging me. It's not doing me any favors. Yeah. It's not a positive emotion. So can I try and turn this, can I even laugh about it? Can I turn it into a joke? Which, is something that we've been doing. Yeah. And these guys are particularly good at. It's just a little thing that can help you sort of trying to reinterpret and look at things in a slightly different way, I think. Yeah.
I think one thing that's kind of stuck in my mind as well is somebody said, if you know what the end goal is, like what's the end target? Well, ultimately it's to be happy, happy and healthy. And if you have any sort of regular feeling or thought or emotion that bothers you, often I think it can become your identity. Like this is who I am. Definitely. This is what I do. Yeah. And then you ask yourself, is that emotion or is that feeling serving you to get towards your end goal, which is healthy and happy? And if the answer's yes, then great, keep doing it. Yeah. But if the answer's no, if it's not really serving you, then it's admitting that to yourself. Well, actually, this is not serving me where I want to go. Therefore, I need to try and drop that and take action. And I think for me personally, is not to make the anxiety part of my identity.
Definitely.
Not knowing that I experience it from time to time, but it's not me.
Yeah.
And when I do experience it, it's trying to minimise the occurrences that it does affect me.
Yeah. And I think that's really key as well, is being aware of it. You know that this is something that you can experience and something that, can negatively affect you. So you're working on trying to do something, and you're aware of sort of the early warnings almost. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, that can help you take control of it. But also what you say about, trying to think about how you're feeling and think, is this benefiting me? And back in evolutionary times, things like panic would benefit you because it's fight or flight. If you're faced with a predator, you better run, otherwise you're going to be dead. So it is actually an adaptive response. It's a positive response. So it comes from sort of however many years of responding in this way. The problem is when it kicks in relation to something that isn't warranted. It doesn't need a panic response, but we respond in that way. And I think especially in life now, when it is so hard to switch off, it can easily turn into that. I think our brain can misinterpret what's happening and think, okay, I'm under threat, which it is. Your brain is under threat if it doesn't get a break. So that is then sort of what starts this off. So I think being aware of that is really useful. And even, what you're saying, just even taking that further, is writing it down. Write down what's happening to you, write down your worries. And be really honest with yourself. You don't have to show it to anybody. You can do it in secret. But writing things down and making them concrete can be really useful. But also, then it's a lot easier to analyze them in a more rational way and be like, is this thought? Well, one, is it legitimate?
Yeah.
Is it actually a genuine concern, or is it just me giving myself a really hard time?
Yeah. Is it rational or irrational?
Exactly. I mean, things like, I think we all have worries sometimes, like, am I good enough at my job? Am I a good enough dad? Am I overweight? Whatever, and you write that down and you look at it and you think, well, is this a rational worry? Is it something I can do something, if it is it something I can do something about? Or if it's not, then you have to work out ways to try and let it go. So I think what Stephen said is really important. You need to be brutally honest with yourself and say, like, is this thought serving me? If I think I'm not a great dad, do I have anything to base that on? Do I forget to pick my kids up? Do I leave them standing in the street? If so, that is a genuine problem. But, you've identified that and you think about, well, what am I going to do to overcome this? What steps can I take? Can I set reminders on my phone? Can I whatever so I remember my kids? If it's just you feel like I'm just not good enough, that's not really a helpful thought. There's nothing you can really do about that. So yeah, I think being truthful and trying to be realistic and not get caught up in the whole, it's very easy, especially when we're tired and especially when we're under a lot of pressure, to be really tough on ourselves, I think, and sort of criticize ourselves too much. And do you find that? Do you find like...
Yeah, I think
and let your thoughts run away with you.
I think for me, I think what we said initially about everybody wants a piece of you, and when you've got, I say 1,000,001 people, but certainly a couple of hundred people commenting or messaging or emailing, and the way my head works, I just see this whole big mess of stuff.
Yeah.
To do. And my brain sees it as one big thing rather than lots of individual things, and therefore it's a big thing. I can't do it, therefore I may as well not try, and I shut down and I don't do anything at all, even though it's all there. And
I think that's quite a natural response. Again, it's adaptive. If you feel overwhelmed, your natural response is to shut down and just sort of curl up and try and get away from all of it.
I just think it's okay, Rab will do it.
Yeah, well, if you have a double, then you can pass it all on. But I think seriously, that's a really good point, because getting other people to help you, if you feel like that, can help lighten the load a bit. The problem shared and all that. So in one way, you can do that in some ways. Even talking to people about it can be really useful. I don't know, did you feel after doing your video that sort of talking, and I mean, I know you're talking to yourself, but you had you had people respond afterwards.
Do you know, it's really funny, because we did a video on this. So Rab and I did a video on one of the best ways to learn is to teach.
Definitely,
so take a subject and teach it. And I've actually found that since we started the Kilted Coaches, and especially since we started doing Mindset Mondays, which is I think over a year ago now, that my occurrences of anxiety have become less and less and less. And I still get them, but I think it's because we talk about mindset principles on a weekly basis that everything becomes easier, because I'm talking about it on a regular basis. And I think the whole prevention is better than cure. When I'm feeling anxious, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, it's very hard to get out of that headspace, isn't it?
Yeah, I think when you think something, okay, in a logical way, I should just do this, this, and this, but when I'm feeling anxious, I can't do it. I'm feeling too emotional about the whole thing. But because prevention is better than cure, the more I talk about mindset principles, and the more I meditate, that this is just reducing all the occurrences of anxiety.
Yeah. So it's more, as you say, preventing getting to that situation, and also having the awareness that that does happen to you, but that's okay. You know, there are things you can do to try and prevent it happening as often as it does. And I think definitely the more you talk about it, I think often even just sort of expressing how you feel can actually reduce the problem a little bit as well. You know, one of the main problems is when you bottle stuff up, and it can very easily spiral and turn into this sort of like overwhelming issue that adds arms and legs and a lot of irrational thoughts, and it can sort of become this monster. Whereas often expressing, you know, even saying it out loud, saying it to someone else, or if you don't feel comfortable with that, writing it down or whatever, I think it does make it more concrete and more real and a lot easier to address it. And then also, especially then if other people come in and say, oh, well, yeah, I've experienced exactly the same, or this has worked for me, or this hasn't worked for me.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing as well. I mean, different things work for different people in terms of dealing with things. And I think it's great that you've kind of figured out strategies that you find really useful.
Yeah.
And again, I saw on some of the comments on one of your last videos that, you know, some people were saying, oh yeah, meditating works for me too. And then some people were saying, well, what about this? Have you tried this? And there was a lot of sharing going on, which I think as well can sort of lighten it. But yeah, I mean, if you are feeling overwhelmed, that is one thing, to share the problem. Or if it's physical tasks that are making you feel overwhelmed, you can literally share them. But I think what you said as well about sort of just this sort of mush in your head, it can be quite useful to compartmentalize things as well, and try and sort of, again, it's just a way of sort of taking control and putting things into more easier to deal with sort of.
Yeah. I think I go to responses to say to myself, if I just do one thing, no matter what's going on, no matter how important I think the other things are, if I just do one thing, then as soon as you've done it, you think, actually, this is okay. I can do this.
Yeah. And it's sort of breaking the back of that, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's giving myself permission to forget the other things. I think that's probably what the problem is actually. Is I don't want to do one thing for fear of forgetting about the other things. Therefore, if I just keep thinking about them all, I won't forget them. But then they're still there, they're not getting done.
Yeah.
And I think if I focus on one thing, I'll forget about everything else.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where the fear lies.
And I think you're a perfectionist as well, aren't you? And I think perfectionists are definitely more prone to feeling anxious, you know, which I guess makes sense, you know, that you want to do everything really well, and you want to, you know, excel in every area of your life, you know, and that's been really tough on yourself. And I think as well you have to realise that at the end of the day you are only human, and yes, you are excelling and doing really well at lots of things, but it's okay if one day, you know, you maybe take a day out, or one day you don't reply to that email or whatever.
Well, see that what this is really funny. Something that really bothers me is that my perfectionist nature isn't perfect. Like something.
You're not doing perfectionism right.
No, exactly. I'm kind of like I'm a perfectionist in these areas of my life, but not in these ones, and it pisses me off that it's not perfect.
Yeah, but think about the areas of your life that you're not a perfectionist in. Do you feel they're better, or do you feel happier in those?
No.
Right, that's not helpful. No, I think a lot of us suffer from that, and I think especially if you do experience anxiety, perfectionism is sort of like quite a strong sort of warning trait that you're going to feel like that. And I think the key thing is to try and, it's a phrase that's used a lot, and some, don't know how you feel about it, sort of be kind to yourself, and I think the key thing is to think about, what would you say to a friend who was in that situation, who said to you, oh my God, but I have this and this to do. I'm not managing to get it all done. I want to do this really well, whatever. What would you say to them in that position? You'd be like, you're not doing it well enough.
Yeah. Work harder. Get a PA. Maybe should I get a PA? Should I get a PA?
Yes. I think it should be me, and you two should walk around dressed like that.
Okay. Do you want to be a PA? Okay. A psychologist PA?
I have conditions, though.
Well, I like them.
Of course. But to get back to serious things, what would you say? What would you say to Rab? I'm looking at Rab, who's directly behind the camera here, and trying desperately to keep out of this conversation.
I would say, shall we go for a pint and talk about it? And he would say, should we have two?
And then what would you say when he told you all his troubles and how hard he was being on himself? What would you say in response to that?
I would say...
You'd be like, damn right.
I'd say, what can I help with? Chill out. Let's deal with what's important and forget what's not.
Okay. So do you think you could do that to yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, it's always a lot harder taking advice yourself than it is giving it to other people. And I'm the first to know that. I can dish out advice all over the place, but whether I can do it is a different story. But I think that really is key, is realizing that at the end of the day, you are only human. As long as you're doing your best, then that is all you can do, and that is really, I guess, what you should strive to, is doing your best rather than achieving this sort of perfect thing that you have in your head. And it is something that I know that, and especially from reading the comments, that so many people are saying the same kind of thing. I feel like I'm not good enough. I feel like I'm not doing this well enough. And it is really sad that we are so tough on ourselves.
Yeah, we give ourselves permission to be mediocre.
Or realizing, are you
like a true loser?
Are you really being mediocre, or is that one of your irrational thoughts in your head?
That's probably irrational.
So yeah, and then thinking about the things that you have achieved and the things you are good at. Stephen, what have you achieved and what are you good at? Not putting you on the spot at all.
It's funny, I'm currently looking at my socks thinking, I made leg warmers out of kilt socks.
I was actually admiring them earlier. I was quite jealous of them because they look really cozy.
Yeah.
Can the camera see your socks? If you wave your feet at the camera. That was just me trying to get a gratuitous shot.
This was actually when we got our new kilts done, and we were telling the guy about our woes about the amount of kilt socks that you need, and he says no, just wear normal socks and cut the feet off your normal kilt socks and wear them as leg warmers, therefore you don't have to wash them as often. We were like, that's genius.
Oh, so they're actually separate?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you'd sewed them onto your socks.
No, they're just separate.
Oh, genius.
Just take them off.
Yeah.
So that's my achievement. That's what I've achieved in my life. 35 years old and I've made leg warmers. Woohoo!
Market that right now. No, trademark it. That's what I mean. Trademark it.
Yeah.
Okay, so apart from your leg warmers, if you think about different areas of your life, and again, I think this is something that's really hard for people to do, especially on camera, probably.
Yeah, it's kind of like, how awesome am I? I've done this and this and this.
But again, you can do that privately. You can feel free to post about yourself.
Yeah. I think it's funny because
take the point.
I don't take credit for the awesome things in my life, though.
Yeah, and again, I think that's the thing that a lot of people do, and it's a very sort of unhelpful way of thinking, is that we are very hard on ourselves when we do something wrong, and we take credit when we do things wrong, but it's harder to take credit when we actually do them right. And I think that again can, it sort of ties in with perfectionism and some of those things as well. But it is sort of giving yourself permission to be like, well, maybe I've not had such a good day today, maybe I've not answered all those emails, but I've done some emails, and maybe I took time to go for a walk or take my kids to the play park or whatever, So it's really key to sort of focus on those positive things that you've done and the things that you've achieved. and it is difficult, but again, it's something that comes with practice. And I think it would be really interesting, actually, one thing that did strike me when you did your video was, you know, a lot of people, when it comes to anxiety, they find outlets in different things, and one of yours is exercise, obviously. and it did make me think about the different outlets that people use. And I do remember thinking when I watched that, I'm really quite jealous of you. That exercise is obviously such a sort of, I won't say easy thing for you because I know you work really hard at it, but it's obviously something you enjoy.
Mentally, it's an easy thing to turn to.
Yeah.
For me.
I mean, and do you find that quite a good outlet then if you're feeling stressed? Like, if you go to the gym or you go for a run or whatever, does that then...
Yeah, I think one of the first go-to responses for me if I am feeling anxious or stressed, I think to myself, well, when was my last workout?
Yeah.
You know, because normally if I go, say, 3 days with no exercise, that's when these things can crop up as well.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes just because I've been really busy or whatever, and a couple of workouts have been missed, and then I start feeling anxious or stressed. I'm thinking, it's because I'm not having my workout. So then as soon as you go have a workout, you feel better again.
Yeah.
And so that's, although I do work hard at fitness, it's physically hard, it's not mentally hard.
Yeah, and it is something that I think you enjoy, given it's your career. Yeah. You know, that you would do anyway, even if it wasn't your career. And I think often that's a really important thing to do as well if you are feeling overwhelmed, is to, you know, sometimes you can't just take that one step to do that one email. Sometimes you do just have to completely remove yourself from the situation and do whatever it is that works for you. And often people recommend, you know, doctors recommend exercise, and it is really useful because it clears your head. You know, there's the endorphins, there's all that stuff, and it does just sort of remove you from the situation you're in. But what occurred to me is, you know, some people find exercise really hard, including me, and it's another one of those things on my to-do list that actually adds pressure to me. That, you know, so I'm like, well, I've got this list of emails, I've got this to do, and I've also got to fit in exercise, and God, I hate that. You know, so I think it's also trying to find something that works for you, and, you know, trying to find something that sort of gives you this benefits without sort of giving you the stress associated with it.
Well, I think after this that we should get you on the couch and talk about exercise, because there's loads of things. I think often people can actually take exercise and paint this picture of how it should be, and then think, well, it needs to be so much of a warm-up, and it needs to be this type of exercise, and it needs to be at least an hour long, and I need to go to the gym. And then because it's like all this kind of scary stuff, they don't do it. When really exercise can be really, really simple when you say, do you know what, I didn't realise I can do that. Yeah,
definitely.
You're honest.
We'll see. I might make you forget about this conversation.
Yeah. Right, shall we get Rab on the sofa?
What do you think, Rab? Are you up for this?
Okay. Oh, don't do it. Don't take my toys away.
We'll regress you.
Even further. Are we rolling?
So, are we going?
Yeah, you're rolling.
So when do I get anxiety? Well, my problem is actually I'm a bit of a thinker.
Yes, that is probably the key. One of the key
an
problems.
Overthinker, and it's good. So when I'm driving around, I'll use my thinking time to process problems usually, and a lot of the time it works really well because, let's just say, for example, I was organising a class and maybe I had a funny number in the class. I'd be planning the session, but that'll work, that won't work, and I'll overthink the problem, and I'll provide solutions for myself. I'm like, nice one, you know. It'll work, it'll be fine.
So that's quite a positive thing then, you're finding solutions to,
and then it's worked for me in the past. Like, I was always quite good at playing chess because I could think so many moves ahead, etc, etc. But the problem I have is that when I then get anxious, the very positive thing becomes a very, very negative thing, because then I process whatever I'm anxious about to the nth degree, and then my whole world just kind of explodes.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's similar to what we were saying to Stephen about the sort of perfectionism, but it's similar with overthinking. You know, people who overthink are definitely more prone to anxiety. And I think it's really interesting what you picked up on there is sort of, in some ways, overthinking can be a positive, you know, and thinking about things and planning ahead can be really positive. And we spoke about that with Stephen, how, you know, it can be quite useful to sort of think about your day ahead, plan in a little bit extra time so you can take time to yourself and whatever. And like you're saying with your classes, that's obviously really helpful, because then you're sort of prepared for different eventualities. And I think especially if you're teaching or coaching, that's something that you have to do.
Yeah,
it's
because
really
you know
important.
that what's going to work, and then you think, I realise that won't work because you've got an odd number or whatever. Or
exactly, yeah.
So-and-so can't do this. So you think about it and think, right, okay, in the space provided, you can do this.
Yeah,
but...
and it helps you feel like you're on top of stuff as well. And it's actually really interesting because I have a friend who is, I think possibly like you, like a hyper plan, like she plans and organises everything. And that's how she sort of copes with trying to keep on top of things and not experience that anxiety, whereas I'm the opposite, and I don't plan anything because that for me is what causes anxiety. So she has the patience of a saint putting up with me, because I'm sure I cause her a great deal of anxiety myself. But yeah, I think that's the thing, is that some people find that really useful to sort of plan things, but that can get overwhelming if you take it too far, you know, and especially it's quite easy then to go from that to being, you know, start planning years or in advance and then thinking, well, I need to get this, I need to get this, I need to get this, I need to do this, and then I need to achieve this. And then all of a sudden you have all these like really huge goals that can become overwhelming. And it can be really easy just to sort of let your mind run with that. And I guess it's sort of being aware when that's starting to happen and when to say, okay, stop. So is there something that you feel that you can do? Like, are you aware of when you start to do that, when your mind starts to...
Well, I know when it happens, but the problem is by the time it happens, let's just say I had a list of things to do, and I can think of a situation where I was driving and I had a couple more sessions left in the day, and a client that I had not seen in the best part of a year and a half got in contact, just really nice messages saying, hey Rab, like, blah, 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 I think I'm doing training again, how many sessions have I got left? Now, the way that I run my business, people buy blocks of 10.
Okay.
But I knew that I'd introduced expiry dates into blocks, but I wasn't 100% sure if I'd done that for her block.
Okay.
Then I wasn't sure. I was thinking, did she use all her sessions up, or did she actually have any left? Because all the information I had was at home. Then I started to get really anxious and overthink it. And then I thought, what if I don't respond to her right away? What if she badmouths me on social media? What if she suggests that she thinks she's got a couple of sessions left when I say she doesn't? And it just becomes this big mess. And when it happens, what happens is I become really narrow focused, and I'll literally cancel the rest of my day to go home and solve that one problem. And until it's solved, I can't relax. And the problem is these anxiety issues happen when you're... I mean, if I was already at home, then I could go get all the information I needed to get, and I could deal with it right there and then you chill out and carry on. But it's when you can't deal with it right there and then, and let's just say I went to my afternoon sessions, the entire time I'd be feeling anxious on the back of my mind, got to get home, got to sort it, you know. And that's and the thing is, it's happened sometimes with the coaches, you know, an email will come through, someone's having a technical issue. Now I've got the email, and then I'm worried that the person will, you know, they've had a problem, but we haven't got to it earlier. I know Stephen's busy, and I'm also not at home, or I don't have my laptop, so neither of us can deal with it. And you don't want them waiting too long in case they get pissed off. And again, it's your anxious mind plays over and over, and time goes slower in your head. Whereas ultimately, it wouldn't be the end of the world if they had to wait 2.5 hours before getting a response. But nonetheless, you're not thinking straight when it happens. Of
course, yeah. And I think as well, that sort of goes back to what Stephen was saying as well, is that you two are being very strict with yourselves. You're setting yourself very high standards, that you're saying, you know, if you get a text or an email, you feel you've got to respond to it immediately. You know, that in itself is putting pressure on you and putting stress on you. So even if you sort of, you know, set up an automatic response saying, you know, please be aware that sometimes we're filming, we're coaching, whatever, we'll get back to you as soon as we can within 24 hours, 40, you know, whatever feels reasonable. And obviously with your clients, you need to get back to them a bit sooner than that. But, you know, it's just a case of trying, before you get to that stage where you can't really sort of logically think anything out at all, think, okay, can I do something? Can I pull over in the car? Can I just quickly send her a text saying, I'm just away to a client now, I'll check as soon as I'm home this evening, I'll get back to you then. You do that, she's happy because you've done what you've promised you've done, and you can sort of let that go and say, okay, I've responded to her, so she doesn't have to worry that I'm ignoring her, that you know, there's an issue or whatever. But again, it's sort of taking control of that situation and stopping it from sort of becoming to the stage then when it becomes too big a worry for you to actually process that. And again, I mean, that's fine. I know it's fine and easy for us to say right now. But at the time, especially when you're trying to juggle lots of stuff, but I think sometimes it is the case of, and again, that's another problem with emails and texts and whatever, is when one comes in, your natural response is to be like, I need to respond to this because someone's wanting my attention, I need to respond to it. But you also, especially with the kind of work that you do, you also need to say, well, I need to protect myself a little bit as well. So, you know, if you do think about a way you can deal with that, even immediately getting back to them if you want and saying, okay, I'm in the middle of something right now, but I will get back to you by whenever, you know, I'll check my books, I'll do whatever. And then that's kind of just taking the pressure off you a wee bit, that hopefully then would allow you to get on with the day before it sort of gets to that stage.
I mean, I would say the root of all my anxiety is the fact that you're expected to be available all the time. So you can't,
definitely.
You're never ever alone. And I like to spend time by myself, but you're never by yourself because you've always got your phone. And if you don't respond to something right away, you think to yourself, oh no, do they think you're ignoring them? Have they not got back to you quick enough? Or, you know, you haven't dealt with their problem fast enough. So you're never really getting alone time unless you ultimately... In fact, you can't even switch your phone off, because then even when it's in your pocket and it's off, you think to yourself, oh, what if
I know, is it building up and is it?
Yeah, am I going to switch this on and there's going to be issues there? So you almost need to leave your phone at home and then that way just go out. But then there's problems that come with that as well.
Definitely. And I think that is just modern living, I'm afraid. You know, a lot of jobs are like that. And I think that is why you have to be very strict. And I think that leads to stress in so many people. But you do have to be very strict in taking time to yourself, you know, be it, you know, ideally more than 5 minutes, but even just a short amount of time where you say, right, I'm going to go out for a walk with the family. I'm not going to take my mobile with me, or I'm going to take it with me for an emergency, but switch it off or whatever. And be really, really strict about that, because I don't think anybody reasonably would expect you to be available to them 24 hours a day. And, you know, if if they do expect that, then that's not reasonable, you know, and they need to look at themselves. But I think you need to be very strict and say, okay, at least 1 hour a day, I'm going to, you know, spend a bit of time to myself, watch TV, sit in a room by myself, you know, swim, walk, whatever, exercise. And also, do think about that. Are there ways that you can let people know that you're available, you're there, but you're also not available to them right the second they want you, you know? So things like out of offices, I think, are really important. And I know obviously for you guys that's a little bit different, but also due to the nature of your work, your clients must know that sometimes you're with a client and you're giving them one-to-one attention. So, and then sometimes just, you know, do that, just put an out of office on your phone, even for a couple of hours, and say, you know, we're away today, I'll get back to you on my return, and then people know. And then it's just giving yourself that freedom where you do think, okay, this is a bit of time that I can spend doing what I want, or with people without any interruptions, or with myself without any interruptions. And it is just being really, really strict about protecting that, because at the end of the day, if you're not feeling mentally on top of stuff, then you can't perform properly anyway, because like you said, you cancelled your appointments for the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's right. Went and dealt with one problem.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you'd just sort of taken that, you know, or taken that 5 minutes aside or whatever, you could have kept going as normal. So I think in the long run, it is better for you, even though it's hard. And this is probably like one of the hardest struggles that people, you know, who are living the kind of lives we do have to face, is making yourself take that time and not feeling guilty about it, because then that's the next thing. Even if you do that, then you feel guilty about it, and then you start beating yourself up about it, and then that makes that even worse.
Well, yeah, because with that situation, the funny thing was, I went home, checked all my records, and to be fair, there wasn't an expiry date, but they had used all their sessions. So then I just sent a copy of all the dates of their sessions, and then they were really nice and turn and going, oh yeah, I thought I'd used them all up, can I take another block? And I was like... It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, but in your head you're like, oh, if I can't solve this, there's going to be an argument. There could potentially be somebody will badmouth you on Facebook and call you name. You know, you play all these crazy scenarios that just are just fiction, really. And
again, I think that's the really important thing, is to try and avoid getting to that stage where you get into that spiral, because we do all do it, and it is very easy to start imagining the worst case. But first of all, you've got to realise, well, even if you do, the worst case doesn't always happen. But also, in an ideal situation, you prevent that from happening to begin with. So do you think that's something doable? Does that, or does that sound like something?
No,
like...
no, it does. It's just this.
Not that you. You don't have to say yes. Because sometimes, you know, people suggest things to me, and I'm like, oh, but you know, I actually can't because of whatever and because of whatever. And then sometimes I have to think to myself, okay, right, Kirsty, be honest with yourself. Is this actually true, or are you making excuses? You know, and I think it is just sort of giving yourself more time to be more aware of how you feel and how you're thinking. And awareness of how you're thinking is really important, which I think is is why it's so great what you guys are doing here, is because you're obviously both very aware of sort of the difficulties you have, and the good thing is that you can sort of diagnose them yourself almost. So sort of once you're aware of it, once you're aware you have a problem, then you're able to address it. And I think hopefully this will help other people as well, because so many people will do the same things. I mean, I think probably Stephen can relate to what you're saying, and I can certainly relate to what you're saying. And the same with what Stephen said as well. So it's quite useful to think, okay, we're all sort of struggling with the same thing.
So did I pass?
I think you've passed, Rab. You've done very well. You've been very brave.
Thank you.
So you get a pat on the head.
If you stroke for too long, I'll start going.
So thank you both for sharing today. I think it is a really big deal. Like, I know you guys are quite comfortable talking about things anyway, and the nature of your videos is that you're pretty open and honest anyway, which is fantastic. But it is still quite hard, I think, for us to sort of talk about how we feel, and especially things that we feel we might be judged for or looked upon negatively. So, well done.
Need to get you on the sofa now.
I don't know how I feel about that. Ooh, that nearly went badly.
So today's episode was brought to you by Dr. Kirsty.
I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed seeing the boys on the sofa, on the couch.
The coaches on the couch.
Being very open and honest, and being laid bare. Maybe not quite as bare as we would have liked, but we can work on it.
That's for after hours. This has been episode 1 of what we're going to do. Episode 2 is going to be you guys on the couch. So we're inviting you to ask questions and tell us your own little stories. Don't make them too long, because we won't be able to respond to them all if they're too long. So make them little short ones, questions, stories, and we're going to have a Q&A, right?
I think so. I think it's going to be
do a live Q&A, or we're going to do a recorded Q&A?
Live, baby,
Doing it
live.
live. I think it could potentially get a bit ridiculous, though.
All our shows are. Have you seen our channel?
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. I don't know. We can see what everybody says.
You come join us on a Friday night.
I think so.
Yeah.
But it's got to be jammies.
Jammies.
Because I think your jammy session was went down very well.
Right. Pajamas on a Friday night. We're going to do it.
Yeah, I think we should see what people say. What they want to see.
Yeah. Answers on a postcard.
Yes, definitely. So hope you enjoyed it.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I'm scared.